Welcome to the TechEd virtual workshop on developer extensibility. And to be more clear, how to develop cloud-ready extensions with the new S/4HANA Cloud ABAP environment with developer extensibility, our DT280 sessions. So me, Harish and Bjoern, we welcome you for the session and we can start. Before we go into the actual session, demo and workshop, maybe here are the short prerequisites. Again, probably you all should have received an email for the identity or authentication. This provides you a user on the instance where you can do the workshop session. Then once you log in into the S/4HANA Cloud Development Tenant with one of these, we prefer FOE. You can take this. These links will always be shared now. And this PPT will also be available. You can use this, log in and see if you have a user. You should have a user. Then you can use the same link in ADT ABAP development tools to create a new cloud project to connect to this instance and proceed to the workshop. With this link or URL, you will also have option to access the Fiori launchpad of this tenant or instance. In the Fiori launchpad, all the necessary authorizations have been provided for your user. It means you can do development in this S/4HANA Cloud ABAP environment system, which was not possible before as there was only key user extensibility. You have a developer persona for your user, and for your business user, you also have the required authorizations to access the API of purchase requisitions and purchase orders, which means you can, in this app, you can access the manage purchase requisitions to create a purchase requisition, and also in the development in ADT ABAP developer tools, you can create your own purchase requisition, a jet class, everything which was not possible before. All this we will show in detail in the demo, and then you could try out hands-on on this one of these instances where you have the user. So here is again the link to the workshop, the GitHub link. Here you have all the exercises. We will go in detail again later after the initial presentation on what is the architecture of embedded steampunk, how different or how same it is to previous ones. And here you can see RAP 600. This is for the bodies. RAP 610 is for the ABAP RESTful application programming model. We will go in more detail later. So now we are looking at the new development option, which is already available on cloud and on-premise. So that is SAP S/4HANA Cloud ABAP environment, or internally we call it embedded steampunk. So we have steampunk and now we have embedded steampunk. And here the names do matter, and why, I will show it in a short moment. Here, these are the key facts of embedded steampunk. Here we have a S/4HANA cloud system. In this cloud system, you can see here S/4HANA cloud environment, and if you see this, you will probably recognize this part is steampunk. So in steampunk or ABAP on cloud, you could develop a new application using ABAP RESTful application programming model app, use cloud optimized ABAP language, have the released etc. etc. Now we have the S/4HANA cloud system where we can access the APIs from S/4HANA applications like finance, procurement, purchase requisition, sales order, purchase contract, etc. Now with embedded steampunk, we are taking all the public interfaces from steampunk, this yellow part, and embedding it into an existing S/4HANA cloud system, which means previously in a S/4HANA cloud system, what were available? The available things were APIs released from S/4HANA applications like procurement, purchase, acquisition, what I said, these public interfaces. And if a customer or partner wants to develop a new application, they used Steampunk, where they developed a JET application, let's say a small shopping cart to order a laptop. And if they want to access from Steampunk, let's say it is here, if they want to access a purchase acquisition or sales order, they had to do a remote API call from Steampunk to S/4HANA Cloud System to access the data. Now we have everything on stack, which means on stack, on the same stack, you can develop a JET application, your own application, a shopping cart in a S/4HANA Cloud System using developer extensibility. And in this JET application, you could access all the APIs from finance procurements, not as a remote API, but local APIs, which means all the APIs previously, which were remotely accessible, are now local APIs on the same stack. So in short, you can develop on-stack extensions, custom code and partner extensions using the public interfaces from applications and the public interfaces from uh, Steampunk, which is now embedded here. And what does this give from, let's say, developer perspective? This enables custom development on the same stack directly. Now, customers, partners, and SAP, very importantly, use the same development model. This ensures high productivity and also uh, seamless upgrades. And we have the RAP, ABAP RESTful application programming model. So we could develop HANA optimized apps on S/4HANA cloud system using Eclipse-based ADT. Then if we want to deploy this application, we can deploy it using Fiori tools, Business Application Studio, etc. And proven lifecycle management means we have a lot of APIs which are released on the S/4HANA cloud system, a lot more. And these APIs are upgrade stable and they will be maintained by SAP. So you could use these APIs, let's say purchase acquisition API to create a new purchase acquisition, but it cannot be modified. The rules are there is a clear separation between the SAP delivered solution and extension. Extensions can always be developed for the released objects, but the released objects cannot be modified. And these interfaces are upgrade stable and reliable. And they are all the released objects from ABAP platform here. And the S/4HANA cloud applications, all the APIs are released on the same S/4HANA cloud system and no modifications. Now here we see a embedded steampunk system from a developer perspective. And what is the extensibility of concept? If we or anyone wants to do extensibility, then we should have APIs which we can use to develop an extension. And that in ABAP development tools, we see the released objects. These are all the released objects from multiple or all the S/4HANA cloud applications. Here we can see the material management. Then if we scroll down, we see the purchase acquisitions, procurements, etc. And we see here as an example, the enhancement spot. This enhancement spot MM4 plus 4PR corresponds to the released managed purchase acquisition application, which means whenever we create a new purchase acquisition using this managed purchase acquisition app, these application exists or bodies will be triggered. So let's say we provide the default values for plant and material, just like a sales order. We provide the default values. Then this application exit for check will be triggered, which means the values will be validated whether they are uh, valid or not. Then there is the modify header and post for post processing. All these application exists will be triggered in the application or data flow. And this enhancement spot has been released in embedded steampunk, which means we can use this enhancement spot and create our own extension. And why do we need it or how do we do it? We will see in a moment. Here we have the S/4HANA FIOE Launchpad. This is the purchase requisition, and we are creating a new check. And what is this? Let's just jump to the UI, maybe. And how do we go to the UI? I will show it in a moment. We go to the properties in ABAP development. And we just take the API out. Now we are in the FIOE launchpad of one of our multiple embedded steampunk systems, FQT. And for the workshop, you will have access to FOE and FQT. Here, we can search for the manage purchase requisition. Here it is. So we see go. Here we see all the already created purchase requisitions. Now we can create a new one. Here we have the purchase requisition. Then for this purchase requisition, we create the sub entity or item, create a new material. Now we provide the default values for plant, then for material, and it asks for the quantity. We just say and here it shows the what we have to provide more. The valuation price, let's say 2. Then it asks for the purchase group, and we have only one purchase group in this system. Can the delivery date be met? We can ignore this warning and say apply, create. And we have a new purchase requisition. Now we again go back. This application has already been delivered to the customer. Now the customer or partner wants to enhance this application. We can see, let's say if the quantity is more than 10, we want to add a check for the quantity limit. And if the delivery date is 6 months later or older than the creation date, then there should be an error pop-up which says the quantity should be less than 10, for example. And this check is not part of the original application. And as a custom code or custom enhancement, the customer or partner wants to add it. And this is now possible in an S/4HANA cloud system with developer extensibility, or it is possible in embedded steampunk. And how do we do this? We have the following steps. We create a new package, then we have we create the new enhancement implementation, ABAP repository object. All these steps are provided in detail in our workshop, and I will also show it as a short demo before we go into the workshop. And here we find the released enhancement spot. This is our released enhancement spot. We take one of the application exit check because we want to validate the values which we have provided on the UI. And for this, the suitable application exit is check. We take it, provide a new implementation name. And for this, we create a new custom class. And this is the class where we develop our custom code to trigger the warning for quantity or delivery date. And here you can see the ABAP ADT tools, the wizard. suggests a lot of things. This wizard is very easy to use, and it provides a lot of flexibility. We don't need to check which interface we have to implement in the class. Everything will be provided by the wizard. We click next and we get our class. This is the same custom code which we will be also using in the workshop. So if the ordered quantity is more than 10 or the delivery date is 6 months after the creation date, then we should have this error pop-up. And you could also change this error pop-up to your uh, nice message. It is up to you. And this is the implementation class which creates or triggers the check. And once everything is activated and everything works, after the newly implemented checks, if we provide a quantity more than 10, then we get the following warnings or errors on the UI. We have to eliminate them or change our value, default value which we provide to create a new purchase requisition. So this is the first part. But let's just again go into the UI, and here we again see the class. As a short overview, here I show you the released objects in this embedded steampunk system. These are all the released objects, which means APIs, wrap objects, CDS views, which are delivered for extension. And we can also nicely configure the tree how I want to see it. I want to see it based on the application component. So I say add. I want the application component material management, for example, to be shown on top. And it is up to you or the developer. You can configure it as per your requirements and your usage. And now we see it according to the application component. Now we can go to the material management. Then we can go to the purchase requisition. And here we can drill down as much as we need. And here we finally have the enhancement spot, or one of the multiple enhancement spot which has been released. And here there are lot of application exists or bodies. For your usage, you can also take something else. If you want to, let's say, modify the purchase requisition item, you can take this modify item and create your own value or provide your own value. Now we are taking the application exit for check and creating our new implementation as shown before. And this is an example for the new implementation. This is our code, which we have added. And just to be sure that when we are running the check or this custom code, that only our code runs for us, we have used the tech name. So your business username, if you provide this, you will only have access to your implemented code. Now we can do a small thing. We can go to the UI again. Our code is active. It is activated, or this class is activated. Now we create a new purchase requisition again. Again, the same steps. New material, plant, And here we already see the message from our class, which is exactly the class where we have implemented the check. So this has been triggered, and we can check it in a different way. Let's put a breakpoint here, just like our classic UI. Let's just change the value of the quantity to something else, just to be sure. Stop. Now you see the debugger has been triggered, which means we are literally jumping from front end to back end. From the UI, we are going into the back end into our code. And just like our classic GUI, we do F6, F8, etc. And now it has been triggered. We can see all the values. Ordered quantity is 13. So this check has been triggered. Now we can say F8 to finish. And we can take out the breakpoint. Now we see the error message again. So from a developer perspective, you can develop and debug your own code, as I have just shown here. From the UI also, if you provide something on the UI, you could just put a breakpoint in the backend and debug your own code. This is not new. For people who are familiar with key user extensibility, they have probably done this coding in cloud bodies using this custom application logic app. But here we are doing it on stack in the system, using ADT as editor and providing our own code. We are not using a UI or application to provide this custom code. We are programming it directly with ABAP in the stack. And we can also debug it directly. So this is how the error message should look like once you have done the first part of the workshop. Now we again go to the second part. As I have said before, embedded steampunk is not just about extending bodies or extending a released application, a sales order, a purchase requisition. It is much, much more. We can do what we have done previously in Steampunk to create a new jet application from the scratch using developer extensibility on stack in an S/4HANA Cloud ABAP, S/4HANA Cloud ABAP environment or embedded Steampunk system. This is a small shopping cart, which means you could order a laptop, desktop. We could develop this using the released RAP APIs, Steampunk APIs, and with cloud optimized ABAP language in this embedded Steampunk system. And what is the demo scenario? On the same stack, we have our online shopping app, web-based, and whenever we order a new laptop or desktop for this on-stack extension, which we have developed, we could, for a newly ordered laptop, trigger a purchase requisition or sales order automatically using the wrap facades. And what are wrap facades? Wrap facades are the released APIs from, let's say, procurements for a purchase requisition. The purchase requisition CDS view or the business object has been wrapped into a wrap business object, and it has been released as an API, which means we could use this API and create a new purchase requisition programmatically without using the UI. Whatever we have done before in this managed purchase requisition app, we can do it on stack using ABAP and a new entity manipulation language. And how does it work? We create a new laptop and we write our custom code to enhance our online shop application so that this purchase requisition will be triggered. And we do all this in the same stack using ADT. And these are the wrap facades. They provide modification-free access. They are released and stable APIs, and they are for local access on the same stack. And they are based on ABAP CDS. Here we have this iPurchase acquisition TP, transactional processing enabled. And here we can see the API state released as an API, and it can be used in cloud development or for developer extensibility, to be more particular. We can take this and create our new purchase acquisition without using the UI programmatically. And how do we do this? Here, we invoke or trigger the wrap facades using EML, entity manipulation language. It is quite similar to ABAP and SQL, let's say. And here we say, this is how the syntax looks like. Modify entities of purchase acquisition, which entity we want to modify, which is the purchase acquisition. And for this, we create the fields. We provide the default values. And for the sub-entity purchase acquisition item, we provide these default values for the particular fields. These are the default values, and we provide them for the fields. If you see, maybe I could just jump over to the UI. Here also we are providing the fields for plant, your material, etc. This is exactly here we are doing it on the UI. We are providing via UI, and this is exactly what we are doing here using this EML statement. Whatever we have done before, we are doing it programmatically. We are providing the values here in the jet class. And this statement creates a new purchase acquisition. And let's just go to the demo again, to our ADT. We come out of the debug mode. Now, a short overview. This is the package, and I have named it more or less like our workshop. So there is also a solution in this system which you could access if needed. And for any lab-based data model, we have this database tables, underlying database tables, and on top CDS views. So here we have the multiple tables. This is the basic or fundamental table, the online shop XXX. Here we store all the data position, which means when we create a new laptop, that is order item, we have the order ID for this item 123, the delivery date and creation date, they will be persisted into HANA. And this is the persistent table for the online shopping cart application. On top of this, as our CDS data model has, we have our interface view, which is service agnostic. This interface view could be reused in multiple applications. This is not for just one OData service or for one UI. It could be reused. On top of it, we have the projection view. This projection view is particular or meant for the particular application. Let's say we want to expose this projection for a UI. We take this projection view and say, expose this into the particular UI or OData service. Now here we see a root view entity in the wrap. Root specifies this CDS view or view entity as a business object so that we could do transactional processing. If root is not enabled or written, then this is just a CDS view. We cannot do the CUD operations, create, update, delete. And for this root view entity, we can do CUD operations, but we need to define it. Most of them are taken over by the framework. And where do we define them? We define them here. This is the behavior. Here, behavior definition. Here we define the behavior, which means we say or we specify, we define what this business object can do or can't do. And here we see manage implementation, which means create, update, delete. These operations and read implicitly will be taken over by the framework or managed by the framework. We don't need to write the code how to create a new let's say laptop. The creation the custom code for create, update, delete need not be written. Everything will be managed by the framework. The framework automatically triggers a create and update. Then we see here, and everything is in this class. We see additional save. And what is additional save? That is a feature of wrap. Here we have additional save table. And here we see the purchase acquisition info record, purchase order, and you can also extend it with sales order, sales order contract, etc. And why do we need it? Because when we create a new laptop, for example, we store the data of the laptop here, laptop, delivery date, etc. And for this laptop, we want to create a new purchase acquisition. We trigger it, but we don't want to store this purchase acquisition value or sales order value in the same persistent table. We want to separate it so that the master data is in one table and the newly created or triggered data, all the extensions, what we do, or in a separate persistent table. And for this purpose, we use this additional save, which means whenever we create a laptop, the laptop data will be in this online shop, and the newly created purchase acquisition, sales order, whatever the developer does, will be in a separate table. So we have this separation for transparency and usability. And naturally, we have to implement this. And how do we implement this? We will just go into the class, but before I will just show what this is. Here we have the field numbering managed read-only order UUID, which means if we trigger this wrap business object, then for this business object, a UUID will be created as a primary key. And this will be automatically created because this is a managed implementation, read-only, which means this primary key is unique from the system or from the framework, and it cannot be changed. Then we have the mandatory fields which we have to provide, which are the ordered item, and which are the read-only fields which we cannot change. And here we have a determination, which means calculate order ID, which means because if we say laptop number XXX or this UUID, it is difficult to memorize or understand. So we create a simple order ID 123 for the specific order, which is easier. Then we have the internal action. This is the important part or the extension. Up to here, we have the normal business object, a laptop with 1, 2, 3, etc., which is created. Now in this internal action, we trigger a new purchase acquisition, and all this we can see in this class. We can either click F3 on this class or on the specific method. Here I'm clicking F3, and we are going or jumping into the implementation. And this is the implementation. Just to be sure, this is the global class. Here we define the class data for the purchase acquisition to store the temporary purchase acquisition value. Then we have the local types where we do our implementation. And here we have separated into two local classes for easy understanding. The first one is for the additional save. I will just come to it in a moment. And the second one is for the normal implementation. Here, calculate order ID. So whenever we provide the values for a new laptop, the order ID 1, 2, 3 will be automatically created or will be custom coded here. So we don't need to provide an online order ID via UI. We can do it via coding. And then we create a new laptop. We push it into the persistent layer using this EML or entity manipulation language, modify entities of this. This is our own business object for the online shopping cart. And once it is created, we want to trigger a new purchase acquisition for a fresh laptop order. And we also trigger it using EML. This entity manipulation language is not just for create, update, delete. It can also trigger action. And here we say modify entities of the online shopping cart. We specify the entity, online shop, execute, create PR. Create PR is the internal action. which triggers a new purchase requisition. Here with F3, we can jump again. This is our internal action. And we want to go back. And here we can see this is the same code which I have shown in the slides. With this, we do exactly what we have done on the UI, but programmatically with ABAP. Once we execute this code in the data flow application flow, a new purchase requisition will be created for this particular order. And now, why do we need this additional save? Because we want to save the purchase requisition value in a different table, which is our HP or XXX, depending on what we use here, your own initials. And here you see a new convert key. And what is this? Some of these wrap business objects which have been released, purchase requisition, sales order, they have late numbering, which means the unique sales order ID or the purchase requisition key will be provided by the framework at the complete end after the save. So till that point, till we reach that after save point, we have a temporary ID which is called PIT. And we in the end, when we say, okay, now I want to have a new unique purchase requisition key, we convert this PIT primary key into a actual value. And this convert key provides a new purchase requisition value, a final value which we store and use it to store our purchase requisition here into our own table. So here we do the convert key from PID to key. Then we have the final purchase requisition value or the unique primary key, so to say. And here this is all code, but somehow this has to come onto the UI. So here we have the behavior definition for the interface view. This could be reused. Then we have the behavior definition for the projection view. Here we are saying use, which means we are using the create, update, delete operations from the behavior definition of interface view. We have defined all the behaviors, all the operations here, and we are using whatever we need here. Then there could be a question. Here we are saying internal action, create purchase requisition. Why don't I also use this action onto the projection? We don't need to, because the internal action is not shown on the UI. If I let's say action, create purchase requisition, then we'll have a button on the UI, which we need to say use action, but the internal action is internal and it won't be seen onto the UI. It won't be projected onto the UI. Now we want to expose it to the UI. So for that, we need to define the service which we want to publish or project. It is a service definition. Here we say define service, expose the particular entity or the business object of our online shopping cart as shop, and which means here we define the business object which should come onto the UI or as a API, web API. Now we have the top final one, which is a service binding. These are all the business services. Here we have the database table, basic data persistence. Then we have the interface view on top, projection view on top, the behavior where we define the operations, create, update, delete, manage, unmanage, etc. The service definition, and finally the service binding for the OData service. Here, when we publish this, initially we have to activate it. Then we publish our OData service. This is our service URL, our OData service. We can just see it. We can also see the dollar metadata. And now we can access the UI from ADT. And this is a local preview. Here you see, double click to launch the preview, which means, let's say I have, why do I need this? I will just show it as an example. In our projection view, we have defined the UI annotations. So how this field order UUID should look like on the UI, label order ID. This we define in our CDS view data modeling itself. So let's say after I do all the UI annotations here, I want to see before deploying it with Cloud Foundry or etc., how my UI looks like. I want to have a sneak preview, and this option in ADT provides a preview without actual deployment. This shows how our service will look like on the UI after deployment. This is a local preview. We are not deploying, we are not using Cloud Foundry or Business Application Studio or anything. We are still in our ABAP development tools, and we are just having a preview. And this is how the preview looks like, order ID, etc. This is my online shop. Now I can say create. Here I give the item which I want to create, a laptop. Say create, and a purchase requisition has been created. Now we want to just see how this has happened. We could go into our implementation class. Let's just see how all this happened. To the calculate order ID where it starts, we put again a breakpoint. Now say create, again desktop. Now we jump from front end to back end, switch into debugging mode. Here we calculate the order ID. We already have 8. Now we select the maximum. We already have 9. Now we add 1 to create our new order ID. So with these read entities, we read all the values that we have provided on the UI. We get the system date. Then we provide the maximum order ID. So we create the order for the laptop or desktop, which we want to push it into the persistent layer. Now we come to this triggering the internal action. So we can go to the internal action. And we can see how the internal action works. We can do it here. Just put a breakpoint in the internal action. We can jump with F8 into the internal action directly and create a new purchase requisition or trigger the code for the new purchase requisition. Now we have the temporary ID. We can see whatever we have provided. This is a new purchase requisition with this temporary PID, which we can use in the convert key to create a new purchase requisition final key. Now we can say F8 and finish this. So we have a new purchase requisition. And if we want, we can check this purchase requisition value here. Maybe we can just, as a final part, we can take this. We just want to see whether this has been actually created or not. So we just go to the, don't need this. We just go here. We already see it, the number 46, which has been freshly created. So this is how we can create and extend our application. And now we have one common extensibility model for cloud and on-premise. Here, this is more in detail. We have the S/4HANA cloud system with the public interfaces from applications, procurement, sales order, etc., and the public interfaces from our platform, Steampunk, for example. And if we still want to do a decoupled extension, we can always use BTP or Steampunk using remote APIs. So we have the BTP and we have the Steampunk and embedded Steampunk side by side to develop remote loosely coupled extensions. And we do all this with ABAP for our part, and for BTP, we can also use Java and Node.js. So this is our summary. We have the S/4HANA Cloud as a strategic offering. Now, in addition to the in-app tools or the key user tools, we also have the developer extensibility or embedded steampunk, and this is now available on-premise for custom deployment. Before we go into the workshop, maybe I have taken a lot of time, but we just go again into our GitHub. Here, I just showed the short overview. This is our session. This is the first part with the bodies to create the checks for quantity and delivery date. This is the prerequisites with the latest ADT tools, browser settings, etc. And what we do, the quantity is more than 10 or so. Error should pop up, and this is how we create the new enhancement spot, which I have shown, how to create a new enhancement spot, etc. And every time, please click on this click to expand so that you will see the code which you need to copy and paste. This is the final implementation, the code which you need to copy and paste in your custom class. Then you will get a new check. We can go to the first part. Then we can do the developer extensibility with wrap business object and wrap facades, high purchase acquisition. Everything is here. And always click to expand. This is a short overview, what I have explained in detail, hopefully. And the architecture overview of embedded steampunk. And the initial part is how to create a UI service with the database table, interface view, projection view, service binding. And this is how to implement the business logic in the behavior implementation class. This is for the additional save. Now how we adapt the implementation. ADT provides this, Wizard provides how to create a new implementation class and add the custom code. This is our custom code. And then we can access the purchase acquisition API. So this is how we access the purchase acquisition API in our custom code with this internal action, which I have already shown. So finally, I can say now, happy coding. And just to be sure, here we have the links. You can use the FOE. I can just share this in the chat so that you could access it. And proceed with the workshop. Chat.
Harish?
Yeah.
Can you please show again the coding where you call the purchase requisition API, where you like to call?
Okay. I am there. Okay, maybe I just go to the normal ABAP mode. Here, this part, we are still creating the required values for the laptop. So let's say here we have provided the laptop and we have created an order ID for the laptop 1, 2, 3, etc. The date today and the delivery date probably 10 days later. And after this has been successfully created, with this statement we finally create the laptop order. And once this is successful, here we trigger with this statement a new purchase requisition and we say execute. Here we can provide the action which we want to execute for this particular entity. And this entity is this online shop which we have in our behavior. This is our entity. For this, we have calling this action, which we have defined in our code. And we can also do it differently. We just go to the code. I just delete it. Now I say control space. Here I can see all the ADT's wizard suggests which actions are available, and here there is only one, which I need to provide and execute to trigger the new purchase requisition programmatically. And this is the code which we have written for that. And because I have changed, I just need to activate again. So hopefully this answers your query, Bjoern.
Thank you.
So I think we could start with the workshop hands-on. I just need to look at the chat. Yeah. And you all already have users for this particular URL and the necessary authorizations to create the web facades and for the managed purchase requisition app. Yes,
can you please go to your ADT and show the version number, and then redo this, how to log onto the system?
Okay, sure.
To see what are the steps. So first to the ADT version.
So here we see the ADT version, help, development tools, ADT version. And now we can just do the cloud instance again. So I am here. I can take, let's say this. Copy. Now I go here. New ABAP cloud project. The service instance.
Okay. Yeah. Wait here, please. So if this first option, this SAP S/4HANA Cloud ABAP environment is missing, so you have not this radio button available, then please update your ADT to a newer version, restart the system, and this option will appear. And then you can continue with the exercise here with this service URL.
Thanks a lot, Bjoern. So this is how we do this. And when you have the latest ADT, you can then log in to the particular and provide your login details. And then you have your FQT. And continue.
Harish, maybe you can spend some words about the situation. Where is the code and what are the differences to a BTP application?
Sure. So wait, I can just show it here.
Architecture slide here.
Yeah, I can just take the architecture slide. Here we see again, let's say if we are doing on Steampunk or BTP, this box will be here. It will be separate, and we will develop our code all online shop on this Steampunk, and that's it. Now, if we want to access from Steampunk, this purchase acquisition API, I purchase acquisition, this EML statement, etc., then we have to do a remote API call and access a S/4HANA cloud system from Steampunk and retrieve the data into the Steampunk system. So which means we have two separate boxes. One is S/4HANA Cloud, and to the side we have the Steampunk, and we have to do a call from our application Steampunk into S/4HANA Cloud to access the purchase requisition data. Now everything rests in the same stack, which means in the S/4HANA Cloud ABAP environment, embedded Steampunk, we have the JET application code, and we access from the JET application code as a local API the iPurchase requisition or wrap facades, release APIs, etc. So everything happens in the same stack, and the access is always local API. Everything is one stack. So I could also show it probably in the system. This is our, let's say, embedded Steampunk system. And here I have my JET application, online shop. I have the implementation class. In this implementation class, this is a JET application which we were not previously able to develop in S/4HANA cloud system. Maybe there is confusion when I say embedded Steampunk or S/4HANA cloud ABAP environment. This FQT is basically a S/4HANA cloud system. And in this system, now with developer extensibility, we have Steampunk enabled. All the APIs from Steampunk are also available in this S/4HANA cloud. So let's say Steampunk is ABAP environment and S/4HANA cloud. Now we have together S/4HANA cloud ABAP environment. We have all the APIs. So here we can do in S/4HANA cloud our JET application. And in this JET application, I want to access a API, iPurchase requisition from applications. This I am doing it locally. This execute action is a local API call. And this iPurchase requisition is not in a different system. It is in the same stack in the same system. So we have all the APIs from applications and Steampunk in the same stack. This is our iPurchase requisition. Maybe we can see this in detail. This is our purchase requisition TP. This is our root entity, etc. Now if we go here, open documentation. This is also a new feature we have. Knowledge transfer document for the released web facades, for example. Here we see whatever is possible with this API. This is a business object. We can do create, update, delete. What are the authorizations? Which authorization objects are relevant? And if we use privilege mode, then the authorization checks will be skipped. Then if we want to do a create for purchase requisition, we already have the code. I can take this code for the new purchase requisition, for example, just copy this, commit entities. I copy this code from the knowledge transfer document, which says how to create a new purchase requisition programmatically. Now I go into my package. Here I can say new ABAP class. I write my JetCL purchase requisition, for example, just mine. So we create a new purchase requisition. Then we need the particular interface to run this class, to be able to run this class. I take this class. Now this is the executable class. Finish. The interface is there. Here in the main section, I add the code and commit entities. Now if I run this, I can get a new purchase requisition. And I can also show the code. Here we can search and see all the code we have. Now we can, in the same ADT, we can jump into a different system. We have multiple options. Now I have here, I can either develop simultaneously in FQT or FOE or another completely BTP system. Everything I can access in the same ADT session. Now I can go to FOE. Now here I can search for something I need. Let's say I just want to check if if there is a class with purchase requisition. So this is again near the embedded steampunk system. This is the check for this bodies. So we can all access all this in the same ADT session. Here I have the FOE. This is one more. This is a steampunk system D22, I think. So everything is on the same session. And this is our on-premise system with developer extensibility. So I can also access that here. Just to be more clear, this FQT is the S/4HANA cloud system with developer extensibility. And this is a real on-premise system with developer extensibility. So the developer extensibility is now available on both. Hello again. So I will just do a short new demo. Here we have created, let's say, our own CDS views directly, which I have shown, but I will just show how to create. For example, this is a CDS view which we have created, but we can create it again with our own custom definition. So here we say new data definition. So it is and I can use the release CDS view. For example, let's see if I can use something from sales order. Purchase requisition, which we have already used. Purchase requisition TP. This is the released one. Or if I have I sales order. TP. Yeah, I sales order TP. This is also a released object, released web facade or API. I am using this to create my own data definition. And here, just a minute. I just create it again. I just create it again. Define view entity. Let's do this. And data source. Okay, we don't need the item. We can just to show that we can create this. Here I'm trying to extend or create on top of a released object, which is not allowed. Here I can take one of my database tables, jet online shop, yeah, from what I have created. So I'm creating my custom definition, my custom code. F8 preview, and we can see the data if it is there. And I will just check the question again. I will just check the question again just to be sure. Execute, this is from our own table. We can check for a CDS view which has been released. Let's go to the released objects. Maybe that is the simple thing. We are here in the released objects. We just go to again procurements, or let's go to maybe sales. Let's just try. Finance. It is taking a bit of time. Okay, we are here. Now we can see that these are the core data services. Just find, we can just find one CDS view which we could access. So I have taken a released CDS view, and yeah, reference information is missing because I have to add some of the fields, but normally this is allowed. So for example, this, it shows that the reference information is missing because the currency table is missing. So in principle, we can always do this. Yeah, I can just take the basic ones. We can take a basic one and develop. I will just check for a view. Just a short minute. So again, I have found one CDS view which is released and which is not wrapped as a wrap object. So this is from credit management, basic functions, financials. It is a released object. a CDS view. We can take this. This is not a wrap object. So we just create a new class, sorry, a new CDS view, data definition, new data definition, ZI test finance, and this is my referenced object. So I'm taking a released CDS view released object and building a CDS view on top of it. Okay, again the same thing. Yeah. Now we add the fields. Activate and press F8. So we can see all the stuff. I hope this answers your question that you could take any of the release CDS views and build a CDS, your own custom CDS view on top without the app. You can, yes, you can do it like this in the, you can do like this in ADT, a custom app, custom CDS view. And just as additional information, we can try to create a new data definition, for example, not on a released object, but on a database table, for example, Mara. Let's see if this works. Because database tables have not been released, only they are wrapped up into CDS views with wrappers, and we are using them to create our own. So now I just say insert all elements. I have a lot of errors. Why? The use of table Mara is not permitted because it has not been released. So we can directly check this. Go to the database table. Sorry. Go to the database table Mara. Go to the properties. API state. This is not released. That's why we cannot access this. This is not released. And uh, we cannot modify this. We're not authorized to add a release contract and release this. So we have to always find the corresponding CDS view on top of Mara, which has been released, and use it to develop our own custom CDS views. And as some more information, uh, here I have just shown the service binding or OData service as OData v2, but you can also create a v4. So we have our service definition, which exposes the object, exposes the wrap VO. We say create new service binding, just ZSP shop OData 4. So now we have directly a UI service. Here with this wrap model, we don't need to go to gateway to activate to use a transaction IWFND or V4 and activate the V4 service or V2 service. Everything we are doing in ADT. Now we have to just activate this. And once it is activated, this repository object, we have to again publish it to get a local service endpoint, which is our valid OData v4 service. And this service will also be accessible in the backend in GUI if we need.
Harish, there are two new questions
Yeah.
in the chat.
Yeah, just a minute. Could you please show again the save modified method? I'll first show the save modified method. Yep, here, depending on the system, if you have here %pid, sometimes you may get a, or if you have a %key, you need to have %pid or vice versa, because it depends also on the released. If the system has been recently upgraded, we may have either %pid or %key. It depends on the error. Sometimes we get a behavior contract violation error. Please check it. And I will also look into the code. Because I am in FQT with %pid, and let's put a breakpoint here. Go to the app. Create. So it just jump to our convert key with %pid F6. Now we have the new final key. We can press F8. And if you have an error which says, and this CVPR mapped, if it says this is not recognized, then please go to the global class and check if you have this in your global class. I will just add this again in the chat. In the global class, please check if you have this. And to the next question, I have changed the dummy message. Okay, let's try this one too. Yeah. Here, I have changed it to okay. Now I have activated this. Please check if it is activated. Now let's put a breakpoint here. Now we go to the app again. Create. New material. Already the breakpoint has been triggered because we are in the application exit. Ordered quantity is 0 because we have not reached the point where the ordered quantity has been entered. So we can just say F8. Now we can continue to the ordered quantity 11. Now I can provide the other stuff. Because this is a test system and use, sometimes it takes a moment to get the error onto the UI. Yeah, now I have an error again. Let's see what is this. And the UI has been triggered. F6. TechEd. We can see the messages. TechEd is here. Now we say F8. TechEd. So now so maybe it is an issue with the activation. If I just take out the breakpoint now, leave the breakpoint, activate again. Now if I just provide some value here, now I should get the error message also. We just go into our wrap 6 and again let's just go to the step number 3.1. Create a developer extension. How to implement this internal action. So to implement this internal action, first we have to take this part. This is the line. We have to go to our code. Here in the global class, we have to check if this is there. And then in the local types, we have to add the following code from line 85. And here, please check that you have here your own initials, XXX or Y, depending on what your initials are. So let's just check what is 3.1. We replace this code. We add this code into the create in PR method. And here we add our own initials. So this is step 3.1, how to access the wrap facade for purchase acquisition. This is the code you have to add, and this line 150 probably you have to just modify. So hello everyone. We are at the end of the session. So thanks again for taking part in the session. We hope that this has provided you with the basic or what is or news on what is embedded steampunk and how to get into the system, basic understanding of what is embedded steampunk. Thanks again.
And so
And
also
we will
from my
also,
side, thank
yeah.
you again. Also from my side, thank you. And if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us.